Hello.
Hey Clay, how you doing, man?
Good. Yourself?
Doing good, doing good. I always love that like immediate just Zoom video where it just pops up and just scares the hell out of you. Just like, oh my God,
I know they should give you some sort of like intro animation or something.
that would be amazing instead of just being like, especially if you have a bigger monitor. I'm gonna turn on
Oh yeah.
brightness. Yeah, that would just be terrifying. There we go. Well, welcome, man. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for
Of
having
c- of
me.
course, of course. I see you're repping Ghostbusters right now. Did you see the new movie?
I have. I have. Yes.
What did you think about it?
I liked it. I had a good time. I don't think I liked it as much as Afterlife.
Really?
It was a little bit all over the place for me. Um,
Okay.
but I thought it was good. I thought it was a fun time.
Awesome. Okay. I still got to see it. It's the wife and I only get a certain amount of time in a week. And so we're like, okay, Godzilla's out this weekend. And top of Ghostbusters is out. Like, what do we choose? Like, we can only choose one. Oh. Uh, but
Yeah.
so we have you here today. So you have a few things coming out. I was able to read it, by the way, and it was really good.
Oh, excellent. Oh,
I,
thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
of course. I was reading it during lunch break the other day at work. And so I was like, hey, this is honestly, man, like, can we talk about it? Like, what can we talk about it? What can we say?
Well, as long as this podcast doesn't come out until after April 4th, we can talk about whatever you want.
All right. It is true. That is coming out. It is coming out after April 4th. So good news for you is it's all on the table. So like where did this idea come from for it all? Like what was like the big huge thing with it? Like what I mean, you're a great writer, might I say too. Not just to like milk the tea or
Oh,
anything like
thanks.
that. I just gotta say, like, we've had you on before because we talked about Red Hood last time you were on, and which feels
Sure. Yep.
like a long time ago now.
It does. It does feel like a long time ago. Yeah.
Ugh. But now you have this new book coming out, and then tell people what it is. Kind of dive into it, man.
Well, it's called Hardstyle Juice, and it is succinctly put. I guess it's a pro wrestling murder mystery, and it's about a family of wrestlers who's there's the patriarch who's the guy who used to be a wrestler who's now running his own promotion and kind of trying to hold on to whatever glory he can have left. There's the son who's the superstar on his way up, getting too big for his father's local promotion kind of thing. And then there's the daughter who is part of the family, loves her family, but maybe wrestling isn't um, her goal in life.
Hmm.
And then an in-ring tragedy that shakes up the entire thing, and then it becomes a bit of a murder mystery where the daughter has to kind of she thinks it's a murder. Everyone's telling her it's an accident, and so she has to kind of work through her own grief by tracking down who may or may not have caused this event.
And it's cool because I think there's this big. It's not talked about enough. There's this big connection between comic fans and wrestling, and
Yeah, well,
it's
honestly,
huge.
there's a huge. It's one of those things where I have always felt like I have been ahead of the wave in my mind, but by the time I get something out, the wave has already passed me. And so, like I in high school in the late '90s, early 2000s. I was working on like a zombie comic, and then by the time I actually started doing it, like I had the ability and the skill to do it. It was like the genre was over at that point.
It was season 7 of
But
The Walking Dead. Is what you're telling me?
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
But this was something where, like, I'm a big pro wrestling fan,
Mhm.
and I've kind of been seeing the last few years that it's kind of coming back into the zeitgeist a little bit more. And I had been wanting to do a wrestling comic for a long time, but I hadn't really quite pinned down what the story was going to be. And then a friend of mine, Ricardo Lopez Ortiz, who's the artist on Hardstyle Juice, he did this drawing for a sketchbook he was putting out that was of this beat up um, like Joshi wrestler. Joshi, sorry, I throw around these terms that people might not know. Joshi is female Japanese wrestlers, and he did this drawing of this beat up like Joshi deathmatch wrestler where she's all bloody. She's got this big boxing glove with thumbtacks all over it, and she's got like
Yeah.
a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. And the second I looked at that drawing, the entire story just went right into my head, and
We
so I was like, I called him up and I was like, listen, I've got this idea. Do you want to do it? And he was like, absolutely. And so it took us about, from that point, maybe 3 or 4 years to get it off the
Shit.
ground due to scheduling and stuff like that. You know, we each all had other things we wanted to do,
Mhm.
and were doing. But finally, a couple years ago, Comixology Originals uh, took a chance on us, and it's going to be coming out. The announcement happens on the 4th, and the actual book comes out on the 16th.
Cool. Yeah, this episode is definitely coming out past the fourth. By the way, I mean I can tell you we're looking at probably definitely like it'll be this episode comes out on like the 8th or the 9th. So yeah, we're definitely
Okay,
it comes
okay,
out then.
yeah.
So
So we can talk about, no spoilers about the book, but we can talk about
yes. I and here's the thing too, like podcasts have recently have done that. I've seen a lot where they're like, we just spoil the whole book. I'm like, why? What is the point? Like, what the fuck? Like, I want to read it still, talk about it. Like, give me at least a few. There's a few podcasts I listen to that are comic themed, and
it. Mm.
shockingly, I know it's kind of feels like I'm cheating on my own self, but you know,
Yeah, it's
it's
just research,
yeah, exactly. There we go.
industry research. That's how I put all
Exactly.
the things I pay for on my taxes.
This is I'm gonna claim this real quickly here. Like, you
Yep.
sure? No, a tax expense. It's an expense. I swear to God.
Oh yeah. I
Netflix. Oh,
keep
I
telling my
swear.
girlfriend, don't worry, all these toys are tax write-offs. And she's like, well, we need to write off a bigger house then.
I yeah. I wish that would. Oh, I wish that would work. Like, what do you have all this porn subscription for? Tax write off. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Well, hey
Research.
man, you just got to change your industry to make that one count.
It's possible. It's this day and age, but just that's a whole medium thing too. It's like we don't want to talk about spoilers and whatnot too, but um, so you saw this one picture, and I think I kind of want to talk about that a little bit there because as writers, like
Sure.
we do have those moments where we see one thing and a whole world clicks. I don't
Yeah.
think people ever talk about it. People are like, "Oh, it's you watched the movie or you saw, like the stain and you said, thought, and or like, oh, this event happened and he's right. It's this like long process of years, but sometimes you just literally look at a picture and it's there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really interesting because that doesn't always happen to me. All these things always start as like a germ of an idea. It's like, oh, it would be interesting if blank, or what would happen if X, and you kind of build it from there. And, and yeah, it was just wild because I just looking at this one picture, I mean, I guess it's funny talking about this, right? Because you read the first two issues,
Yep.
and when talking about the first issue, there's a part of me that wants to play it incredibly close to the vest because of the way the book is kind of structured. But at the
Mhm.
same time, it's like, well, once you say murder mystery, somebody's gonna die. So it's like, well, I guess when you're trying to advertise the book and like the decide what to tell, and so basically, it doesn't matter. I can say what's going on. When I saw that drawing, I started thinking about like, oh, this wrestler, maybe she comes from a pro wrestling family, and maybe she's the younger daughter, and that she ends up in the ring because someone in her family had died, and blah blah, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
it just all just came right out. And honestly, um, from the original pitch that I came up with shortly after that, not much has really changed.
Oh, so you
It's
stuck to the guns. You really went for it. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's I felt like the core idea was strong enough
Mhm.
that kind of trusting that and sticking to it has kind of been the driving force the whole time. So it's you've got this it's you can a fairly kind of classic story about it's kind of like it's picture the Godfather, right? Where
Mhm.
instead of organized crime, the Corleone family loves professional wrestling. And so
Which
you've
is
got
still
your
a thing, by the way. We should
right, of
clear that
course.
is still a crime thing. That is still a big thing. And
Yeah,
like Daredevil's
absolutely.
dad died because of boxing, like,
Right.
and it's not wrestling,
Right.
but it's still there's still a lot in it. It's fuck the
Right.
radio show was joking around recently with the whole because of basketball, it's March Madness right now. The radio was
Mm-hmm.
joking around. They're like, you better watch out for Italian friends during this one when you bet with your Italian friends. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, so I started thinking. I actually didn't make the Godfather connection until recently when I was thinking about it. But it's like, imagine Michael Corleone, instead of trying to move away from his crime family, it's this girl trying to move away from her wrestling family,
Mhm.
and ends up getting pulled back in.
Yeah.
and using her new position to deal with her grief over the death of a family member.
Is wrestling something that you're thinking that you wanted to write about? It's always been something you wanted to write about, or has it been something that you were like, it just came from that idea you clicked?
I've always wanted to do a wrestling book. Um, I've I've been a fan for a long time, but when I was a kid, I was really into it, and then I kind of fell off
Mm,
around like high school and college, as you know, we all tend to do. And then I came back to it about 10 years ago.
mm.
Um, it's funny, one of those things where it's like you feel like you're an adult now. I never ordered WrestleMania when I was a kid because it's a pay per view. It's like $50, and talking your parents into ordering a pay per view is not easy. And then a friend of mine was he was on Jeopardy,
Okay.
and he
All
yeah, I
right.
know it's a strange turn. He won Jeopardy,
Oh shit.
and he won one episode of Jeopardy, and he had two things he wanted to do with his money, one of which was go on a big vacation with his wife, and the second was to order WrestleMania pay per view. And so we ordered WrestleMania, and we came in. It was the first thing that I had watched in years, and it hooked
Oh.
me right back in. It actually hooked my girlfriend, who wasn't really a wrestling fan, so we've been into it ever since. But since I had gotten back into it, I've been thinking about it more as far as storytelling goes,
Hmm.
and I, being someone who is in the trenches sounds bad, but or negative, but like who is a working comic artist who's doing conventions
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff. You see the similarities between the two industries as far as how these guys are all freelancers, and they're all, every wrestling show is basically a small convention
Yeah.
where the in between matches these guys are trying to sell stuff to make a couple bucks. Um, and I started putting these things together because I kind of identified with it a little bit, and just the idea of the really thin line between reality and fiction in
Mm.
wrestling is what got me at first, and but I couldn't quite synthesize it into something I was excited about until this thing came along, and I was like, okay, I think I know where we're going here.
Mm. It's I like that. That's honestly, it's a great story to go with it because you're like, I fell out, I'm here, I'm doing this. Thank God for Jeopardy, because without Jeopardy, you wouldn't be writing this
I
book
know,
almost in a way.
I know. To thank them in the omnibus edition.
You know what? When your friend won, by the way, and he's like, "Yeah, I got the pay per view. We're gonna do it." I'm making that dude pay for snacks. He's buying all the beers. You're buying all the food, buddy. You're getting the wings. I gotta say too, kind of similar with that. I went to a TNA match once in Universal
Oh
when
sure,
like
yeah.
Universal Orlando. I was there with family. I was like a little kid. I was like, "This seems cool." Like I used to play the old WWE like the old PS1 video games. My godfather and I used to play them all
Oh
the
yeah,
time. The
yeah.
wrestling, like any wrestling games, we had them. It was great. Uh, that's a throwback. If you ever look at old pictures of those video games, they really you kind of feel old.
Yeah,
Uh,
4 or 5 pixels punching each other. Yeah.
oh yeah, and you're like, how? How could you figure this out?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of fell out, but at TNA, when I went to TNA, it was great. We got in for free. Their Universal was like, hey, we
Nice.
have extra seats. You want to come in? So we sat behind the Latino broadcasting. So we had no idea what the people were saying there, but like the
Oh
English
sure,
guys were
sure.
all over there. Great time. I loved
Oh,
it.
it's excellent. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
then
the other thing. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, like, it transferred later. Like, I follow it. I do follow it. I keep track of everything going on,
Yeah.
and then, I watch sometimes. Like, I watch clips, and I'm like, okay, because
Mm.
like, I don't have cable. I don't, and so like I can do what I have to do. And I went to a couple years ago. I went to I was we had a wrestling. It was a wrestling match, and we had parties. Like an old
Yeah.
network I used to be a part of. Like everyone would come down. Like we got wings. You'd bring your food. It was bring beer. Like whatever it might be. Those were a blast. We'd stay up
Oh yeah.
superbly late, and it was like we're watching all this stuff go down, and we had it pre-recorded. But it was like this is fun. Like this is great. Like this is better than a movie night with friends because like this is like our rule was like turn off your phones. Like,
Oh, of
we
course. Yeah.
want no notifications or nothing like that. But I think somebody bought like 60 chicken nuggets one time. So we just get there and I walk in with like bags of candy and I'm like, all right, boys. And I think I had like some Corona. And so I'm just in there like, let's do it. And then I walk in, I'm like, what the fuck? And there's like 5 bags of this chicken nuggets just spewed upon this table. I'm like, "This is great." And, like, we're cheering, we're like, "Yeah!" Like, oh,
Oh yeah.
it's so
Well,
fun, it's so fun.
it's become this kind of thing where, I don't want to be that guy who like forces the things he likes on people, but I feel like professional wrestling tends to get a bad rap still
Yeah.
for reasons it may or may not deserve. Let's put it that way.
Mm.
And but usually what I'm like, I do the same thing. We'll have parties basically for the big pay-per-views. Like we usually do SummerSlam, WrestleMania, and Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble being the most fun because we do like a numbers game.
Oh.
Everybody picks a number, and if your guy wins, you win a bunch of scratch tickets or something. Um, but I always encourage people to come, even if they've never watched it before, because I've seen it. I've seen people kind of go, I don't really know, and then they watch it and they get into it, and then they get it. Like they've never watched it before. Like I remember I had a friend over who was she had been out of the country for a long time, and then she was back, and then they were kind of looking for something to do, so they came over to watch wrestling. And about like 3 matches in, I think it was WrestleMania,
Mm.
so the spectacle is as big as possible. And at a certain point, she stopped and she went, "Oh, this is like RuPaul's Drag Race, but they punch each other." And I was like, "Yeah, exactly. Like if that's what it takes, perfect." Like
Wow.
there's an element of it that I think gets overlooked because it seems so aggro and weird,
Mhm.
and it's just a bunch of people fake fighting, quote unquote. But it is really, there's a theatricality to it. The thing that really got me was the amount of trust that's involved, because you're kind of, every wrestling match is kind of an improv scene,
Mhm.
but it's an improv scene where if you screw up the scene, you could die, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's, and as the new wrestlers that are coming out are all so incredibly athletic, and it really is quite a thing to see. And I had never really gone to independent shows
Mhm.
until we got back into it, and that we had seen a couple things around us. We were like, well, let's go check it out, see what's going on. And the independent stuff was the stuff that really hooked me, and that was what really made the connection with comics to me, because those are the guys and girls who are in it the way that the people who are doing conventions every month are in it, trying to
Yeah.
publish their own books and all this, all this kind of stuff. And it's been really fun the last handful of years to be able to see people that we saw scraping to get by in the independent scene 6 or 7 years ago are now the biggest names in the biggest companies. It's really fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, you see these people's evolution, and you know it's a lot of work, and, like, it's so
Oh,
much work to do
absolutely.
it, and to
Yeah.
see I think it's like it's your team, like, it's your sports team, it's your
Yep.
it's
Yep.
your hero, it's your icon, it's your some whatever it might be, like, seeing I think that ties into a lot of there's so much to unpack your psychology with it, of, like, you wanna
Yeah.
be there to support them. Like, you wanna be there
Yeah.
to be like, "Hey, I wanna see the evolution and the growth," because then that makes yourself do the evolution and the growth. So it's a whole thing of that, and to see it, it's just cool. It's so fun and cool. It's like this, like, the I hate just using those short words for it, but it's true.
Yeah. And I I wanted to set the book in the independent scene
Mhm.
because I think it's very easy to look at the big spectacle of the high end professional wrestling stuff and use that as like a it's very easy to adapt that to like huge dramatic stakes and themes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a book. Uh, I don't mean this in a negative way, obviously. There's a book that came out last year, or the year before, called The Crimson Cage, I believe,
Okay.
that a friend of mine drew. That was It was a professional wrestling. It was Macbeth, but it was professional wrestling in the '80s. So it was like, the king character was essentially Ric Flair, and that kind of thing, where it fits to the big Shakespearean um, drama of it all.
Yeah.
The big stuff. But what fascinated me was I wanted to put it in the independent world because that stuff is so insular and kind of like grittier, and it is really about people and families who are keeping the stuff alive.
Mhm. Yeah, and without the people in the families, like, there's no support to it, and you have to really there's so You did very well, Clay, in choosing a wrestling book because there's so much to tell with these stories. Like there's just so
Thanks.
much. Like we could spend like 2 hours talking about this stuff. To be honest, like there's so much to it, and
Sure. Yeah.
like there's this. You're like, no, I don't want to. See, like I got shit I gotta
Well,
do.
I honestly, I mean, you're the first person I've talked to about it. So
Oh, really?
anything you want to talk about, let's get into it.
Oh shit! Oh, I love that. All right, cool. It's honestly just like being able to sit there with it because there's so many avenues to go down with a book like this. There was one when you were mentioning that. There was one that made me think about it. God, I think it was 4 years ago at this point. Time is meaningless at this point.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it was 4 years ago. Um, I was able to get early access to this wrestling comic. And I don't think it ever
Mhm.
came out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it had to do with like an interstellar wrestling ring. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yeah. I think that's probably Do a Power Bomb from Daniel Warren Johnson.
I don't think that was it because this was
No.
indie people.
Oh, maybe not. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I
this
was
was
going to say that book definitely came out in
no,
parallel.
this was not that one. It was something totally different because it was an indie company who reached out to me and was like, "We want to do this. Can you
Oh,
review it?"
interesting.
And I
Okay.
reviewed it and edited it for him. And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I didn't even take credit. I was just like, "All right, yeah, I'll take a look at it and crack
Yeah.
and see what they're like." You write comics? Like, yeah, no problem. Did that and took a look. And it was cool. And it was really fun. Like it's doing it in space is awesome. Like wrestling, you could do it
Yeah.
in space. You could do it like whenever. And it's just, as you put it, Shakespearean. There is a Shakespearean kind of thing to it. And I think a lot of people don't ever look upon
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is adaptable to a lot of different scenarios.
that.
Um, and one of the things that I wanted to do with this one is I've been one of the things that fascinates me about wrestling is how it is such a niche community, even of itself,
Yeah.
that even has its own language. You know, there's all sorts of words into like Hardstyle Juice, the name of the book. It's one of those things where I tell people with the name of it, and they kind of give me like a weird look, and I'm like, yeah. So it's what it is hard. The term Hardstyle Juice is sort of wrestling talk for when you get cut open by accident instead of like using a knife to cut yourself.
Yeah.
It's like called getting busted open the hard way. And that sort of stuff really fascinates me too. That there is this little community that kind of has their own language that they use. I try to put it in, intersperse it a bit in the book, but it you always have to tread lightly doing that stuff because if you're not part of that universe and you start throwing around these terms, it can come off very fake very quickly.
Yeah, you don't want to seem like a
Um,
fake fan. You don't want to seem like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. And it's like, and you
yeah,
don't want to
like
seem
the
like you're
word
trying too hard.
yeah, the famous term to come out of professional wrestling is the term kayfabe, which is the term that they use for the entire facade of
Mm,
wrestling.
mm.
And I wrote it into the script once, and I said to my editor, I was like, this feels weird to use this unironically, so I don't think we should use this word. She was like, yeah, I agree. So we don't use that word at all.
Nice.
But there's lots of conversational things that make it very unique. Because as much as comics is its own niche, we don't really have that much of like a shared language. Maybe we do a little bit. Maybe I don't know. And if you're an outsider, it sounds like we're talking gibberish. I don't know, but
But
it's
that's
just
every
that
fandom.
sort of yeah that sort of niche community, this sort of world that exists um, in a very specific space is what fascinated me. And my approach to it originally was I wanted to do it kind of like Twin Peaks, where you've got a single the death of a single person opens up a door into this entire community that you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the starting point was for everything. Um, and that's why I wanted to keep it more indie. So it's people, they're relatable to each other, and you're just trying to see these people live their lives. And also, it's an over the top, punch fest. So it's a little bit of both, which is what wrestling is.
Which, by the way, also looks great. I have to say the art really threw me when I clicked on it.
Ricardo's
Oh,
unbelievable. He's
yeah, yeah.
fantastic.
I was clicking on it and I was like, all right, I know Clay's writing. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be awesome. And I opened it up and I was just like, holy shit! Like, it
Yeah.
really like this is great. It's oh, you guys are and I think too. Like I say every episode on the show, like your guys' team is fantastic. Like it's always a team effort for these books for any comic
Oh
book.
yeah, absolutely.
It's I shit the amount of people think for the ones I write. Then with them coming out later this year and We've been teasing them. People are like, oh, you do all the work. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of people behind here. Like,
Oh,
here's a
absolutely.
credits
Yeah.
page, and there's 5 people on here alone. And it's
Yeah.
like, not alone. Like, there's so many people. But do you have an end goal, by the way, too? Is it one of those, because it being indie, and your own thing? Like, do you have like an end part of your storyline, or is it like, we want to keep going?
Um, I will say I don't want to. I had always envisioned it as something that keeps going.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, I want to shout out Ricardo, but also Heather Moore, who's our colorist, who's absolutely demolishing this book. Like this is one of those things. It's always a pleasure when you get back art when you're just the writer, and you go, yeah, that's better than I ever thought it could be.
Yes.
They're doing things that I didn't even consider.
Yes,
Like the
absolutely.
way in the first issue specifically, the way Heather changes her coloring scheme to intensify things as the action gets intensified. It's excellent. Um, but I had always thought of it. I wanted it to be kind of like just a throwback to a traditional kind of episodic comic where the thing I had in my mind a lot was the old Incredible Hulk TV show, where
Ooh.
it's like every episode, David Banner blows into town and solves some thing that's going on, where he also happens to be the Incredible Hulk for like 5 minutes. But it's like he's the Incredible Hulk and the X Files, because I was thinking about Mulder's search for his sister,
Yeah, yeah.
and the way that the X Files is structured, where it's like, oh well, some episodes are very specifically about Mulder trying to find his sister. Other
Mhm.
episodes are just monster of the week type things. But the backbone is his search for his sister, so you can just that engine can keep things running. So that's always been my. That's a long way of me saying you're not going to find out the answer to that mystery at the end of the series.
I like
But
that. I like that. It's a good answer too, though.
if I've done my job correctly, you should find a satisfying ending in the first 5 issues that we're doing here.
Mhm.
That is the answer to another question that's brought up that is not necessarily the overarching question, but will lead you into possible future stories. I don't know if those future stories are ever going to happen, honestly, because
Mhm.
who knows? We don't know if we're going to do any more. But if we do, there's avenues to do it.
Play, you're such a fucking tease. See, you're such a tease.
Hey,
You're
that's
just
part
like,
of the
well, it
job,
could
man. Much
be.
like professional wrestling, promotion is the name of the game.
Oh, yeah, it's true. It is true. You gotta do it. And man, and you guys this is going on Comixology, right?
Yep, it'll be digital first, starting on April 16th, and
Okay.
then I think it comes out in hard copy from Dark Horse. I can't remember, some either 6 months or a year later. I think I can't
Yeah,
remember.
that sounds about right. Yeah. Printing always takes forever. Yeah. But that's cool though. So I mean, you're doing a digital in there. So we do gotta talk about it. I don't want to take too much of your time today, man. We do gotta talk about it. You had a recent book come out though. You've had a Generation Joker thing come out?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The trade for Generation Joker, think I don't think it's out yet. I think it might actually come out the same day as Hardstyle Juice, which is the
That's a good
collection
day
of.
for you.
I know,
That's-
yeah. But yeah, I did. I got to write 6 issues of Generation Joker with Sean Murphy and Katana Collins,
Yep.
which was fun because it was a little kind of pocket of the White Knight universe with the Joker's 2 kids that we got to play around with, and we did a sort of like an '80s road movie kind of, or the
Yeah.
Goonies, where it's 2 kids on an adventure trying to get into hijinks and save their dad.
Which is like fun. And I love the universe you guys have done in that one because you did the Red Hood in the White Knight universe too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so because I remember talking to you about that. So like, did they give you that call and say, "Hey, man, you did this. So do you want to you want to come play again in the sandbox?"
Well, it's Sean. Sean makes the calls
Mm,
for who's going to do what, and when this Generation Joker was going to be the last thing he did in the universe for a while, and I had written Red Hood, and Katana had written Harley Quinn, and so when it came to do this, instead of looking elsewhere, he decided to keep it in the family, so to speak, and asked if the two of us wanted to jam on it, which
I like
I
that.
thought we did it. It was the first time that I had really written collaboratively with someone before,
Okay.
and I thought we clicked really quickly, and I thought we managed to find a good rhythm to it.
I like it, man. I like it. Is there anything you want to tease about that at all? I mean, if I remember right, something's just been out, but is there anything you want to talk about that at all?
Um, I'd be interested to see how people enjoy it as a full trade instead of
Mm,
issue to issue. Because it is comics is a weird medium, right?
yeah.
Because technically, you need to make a book that works two ways. Once with a month gap in between, and once when everybody reads it as once as a single book.
Yeah.
Um, I guess it's not that different than like television, but
But it's still
we
a
did
talent.
some. Yeah, it's something you got to get used to.
Yeah.
You have to. The one thing I learned about comics when I was really first getting into making them is it's every you have to be hooking people down
Mm,
to essentially every page that you write.
yeah.
Like ideally every page should have a little cliffhanger on it that it encourages you to move to the next page.
Mm.
And that extends to issues and to larger things and extrapolates outward. Um, but we did some crazy shit in that book. Like we were just kind of like throwing a lot of stuff at the wall because it's a different tone than Sean's normal book because it's a little bit more um what's the word I'm looking for? It's two kids on a
Yeah.
the Joker's kids steal a Batmobile and go on a road trip with their father. And so if that's your starting point, it's going to be a little bit more
Wild.
slapsticky and
Yeah, and you guys
crazy.
are Black Label
I
too,
did,
so like it's you have free
yeah,
reign. Like you were just like, here you go, have fun.
yeah. It's one of those things where it's like blessing and a curse, I guess, because you start off and it's like, oh, we can do whatever we want. Okay, what if we do a robot that has Two Face's brain in it? It's like, all right, yeah, sure, let's do that. Why not? We'll throw that in there.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
There was some stuff that in there that I really enjoyed because that takes place at the furthest most point in Sean's White Knight universe, and it's about the Joker kind of trying to reconcile the person he wants to be for his kids with the person he was as the Joker.
Mhm.
And so basically, he's trying to show his kids that he's more than just a maniac by bringing them, his intention anyway, is to do that by bringing them to these different places that are important to him. But that gets sidetracked very quickly. But what ends up happening is the kids end up going to these places that are very important to the Joker's history,
Mm.
but they're not going there because he's taking them there. They're going there because they're being pulled there by the consequences of everything the Joker did when he was alive. So,
Mm.
you end up at the club where in the first issue we end up at the club where Harley and Jack Napier meet for the first time. But
Mm.
it's been 30 years or something, and so that club has been turned into a children's puppet show theater
As a club usually
that
does.
happens. Yeah, as you do. And Gotham, that's par for the course in Gotham City.
Oh, that's true.
Um, and it turns out it's run by the daughter of the ventriloquist, who is pissed off at the Joker because the Joker killed her father back in the first White Knight volume,
Yeah,
or
that's
back
true.
in first of the White Knight when Azrael killed everybody, but
Yeah.
at the behest of the Joker. And so now she's going after the kids, and then they end up at Axis Chemicals. They end up at Arkham Asylum, and all these places that maybe the Joker doesn't want them to go, but they're learning about who their father really was by the consequences of the things that he did when he was alive.
Such a beautiful story. Like such a I mean
Thanks.
it's how is it writing Joker, by the way? Because like I've talked to a lot of people over the years, but like no one's ever like tackled that character alone. Like, what was it like writing
Mm.
Joker?
Well, Sean's Joker, Jack Napier, is a very different character than the
Yeah.
one who's in the main continuity because first of all, he's dead, and he's a hologram at this point. But
Yeah.
he's he's a version of the Joker who is reformed and is trying to grapple with the things that he did when he was this maniac, and that creates a very unique character for the Joker that I don't think has ever really gotten that much play.
No, no,
And
not at all.
as we were getting into it, I was trying to think of like, all right, what do you do here? with this character, because you don't want to just have it be Jack Napier taking his kids to these places and being like, well, this is where I met your mom, and this is where I had my first, you know, croissant, or these places that are kind of like, yeah, what are we really getting out of this other than
Mhm.
him kind of patting himself on the back for the person that he wants to be? And so the only thing I could think of is, well, this is the Joker trying to clear the slate for himself, his own conscience. So in order to do that, we need to have them encounter as many horrible things he's done as possible,
Yeah. Which is a
because
lot. You got a lot of
otherwise,
good work with there.
right, yeah. So because if you're trying to tell your kids who you are, who you really are,
Mhm.
if you're being honest with yourself, you got to show them everything. And so, sure, he shows the things he likes, like where he and Harley met, but in order to do this, the kids are going to have to see Axis Chemicals, where he gets turned into the Joker. They're going to have to
Yep.
see the Joker gang, who have turned him into this kind of deity and
Yeah.
are doing crimes in his name. You're going to have to see, well, the two. The Two-Face thing is not a joke. That actually is in the book. I won't explain why, but you'll have to read the book to find out.
Yeah. I'd like her to just like, yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
Just
Well, no,
laughing.
that was a pitch. That was a pitch I made fairly early on, and I'm kind of frankly shocked that it made it all the way into the book. But it's
That's
probably my
amazing.
favorite. It's one of my favorite parts of the book. That in the ventriloquist daughter part, I think, because the ventriloquist daughter is the idea there was, what if the ventriloquist daughter was the head of a gang of basically murderous Avenue Q puppets. And so you've got this sequence where it's a bunch of people in black with their puppets that all have knives that are the ventriloquist gang. So
I wanted to see
it's
that
a
happen.
silly
I,
book. It's
I,
a
I want to
silly
see
book.
the
It's
animation of that, man. I want to see that in a cartoon.
Yeah,
That'd be
me too.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You're like, yeah, get residuals. See, yeah, absolutely. Oh man, like that. Oh, it's those silly books are fun. Like when you do the serious books and
yeah,
you do the silly books, like it's just fun. Like I got a couple of my series, a couple of them are serious, a couple of them are silly. Like it's just having a blast.
yeah,
We get to make fun. We get to be creative, and it's whether it's wrestling, whether it's kind of like DC or Marvel or anything like that too. You get to like create characters. You get to add to characters, and I think that's why we do what we do.
yeah, absolutely. And with Generation Joker specifically, we wanted to have a good time and make it this fun adventure, but we also wanted to maintain the heart of the story, which is these two kids who are trying to find out who their dad was and reconcile all that kind of stuff. And
Mm,
so, as long as you hold on to that center character point,
yeah,
and that is your driving, that element is your driving inspiration to keep the story going. I think you can trap all the silly stuff onto it as much as you want, as long as that's your center focus.
absolutely, absolutely. I guess I didn't want to take too much more of your time though, Clay. Where so April 4th is the announcement, right?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
and then it's dropping when again?
The 16th, April
This
16th.
it's I just realized because you text me this and stuff like that too. I just realized it literally drops on my birthday.
Oh, hey, happy
Yeah,
birthday.
happy. Yeah, thank you, man. I'll take it as an early birthday present. But
We
yeah,
did that on
that's
purpose.
I swear to God, did not because I'm gonna be out of town. So all the stuff's gonna be pre-dropped. Like it's gonna be ready to go because I am going to, and the wife are going to mountain stuff. So we're going hiking through the mountains
Oh,
because
excellent.
yeah, we like to go hiking. That's our thing. Like I may be a big nerd, but I like to do, we like nature.
That's great, man. You got to get out of the house. Do you still work in the park service? Were you doing that for a while?
Somewhat did some park service stuff. So like
Yeah.
currently I do, I don't want to say where. I've had like stalker issues recently, so I don't want to say where
Oh,
exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's been a
yeah.
thing.
Please don't.
But I still work with animals, to say the least. I won't say where, but like I work at a shelter, and then also do
That's
like a
great.
bunch. We do the wife and I do a pet sitting business as well. But there was like zoos
Excellent.
I was working at. I was an animal cop for a while too, so it's just really getting out there and enjoying stuff, especially after doing a few years of
Yeah,
criminal
absolutely.
investigations. Yeah, yeah. After that, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go hiking.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, that was
You're
the
doing
thing.
criminal investigations.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever talked about it too much on the podcast. I don't do it anymore, so I
Sure.
think legally I can say stuff now. On record. I think I can like off record I'll say
Let's
whatever.
get some people released from jail. Let's blow it
There
up.
no It's all animal. It was all animal crime stuff. So like some people are in jail,
Oh,
but
sure.
um, it was like I worked for the Humane Society. I think I still have like
Mm.
I don't know I didn't get a badge, but like I still like I got some stuff somewhere of it. But looking around the office real quick in it. But yeah, no, I was a EAMT, emergency animal medical technicians, and
Wow.
I did ambulance calls. So like if like a dog got shot or hit by a car or something like that too,
Mm.
I'd go out in my ambulance and do that. Rescue from like rooftops or trees or anything or drains, and then also criminal investigation. So like I would do
Oh,
stuff for
wow.
like abuse and a lot. So we'll just say that. Yeah, there was a few years of that, but and I was like,
Law and Order Pet VU over
it. You know what? You joke. There was a TV show on my
here.
job. Actually, it was on Animal Planet. It lasted. I worked with a few of the people who are still on the team, and they're
Oh, no
like,
kidding. That's wow.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Andy. Shout out to Andy. Shout out to Cynthia. Andy's a giant comic book nerd. He's got like a giant sleeve of like DC heroes and stuff like that too.
Excellent. Excellent.
And he's like, you write comic books? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what the fuck are you doing here? I'm like, I like animals. It's like it was a whole thing. But yeah, man. Yeah, if you ever want
That's
to shoot the
awesome.
shit on that, say if you ever come to Phoenix Comic Con, or grab a couple beers if you want to hear anything.
Absolutely. That would be great. And
Yeah.
just to throw it out there too,
Mm.
I know it's clunky to be like, all right, what you want to do is you want to go to Amazon and you want to type in hardstyle juice and look at it, but like that's clunky. So what you want to do is you want to go to hardstylejuice.com, and
Mhm.
that when the book comes out, right now it's a landing page where you can sign up for an email list and you'll know when the book drops. And if you're listening to this after the 16th, hardstylejuice.com will direct you straight to the Amazon page.
Oh
So
yeah.
hopefully just a couple clicks and you can have the book on your phone or your tablet
Sweet.
or your what have you.
You're a man who knows his business. I like it. You're like,
You know,
listen.
I'm trying to. Getting it into people's hands is
Mhm.
sometimes the hardest part of the business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when it comes to stuff like this, you just got to kind of think about like, all right, what's the shortest? I know myself, right?
Mhm.
And I know that if I have to do more than like click a couple buttons, I'm probably not going to do it. And I think most people are like that when it comes to internet stuff
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So trying to make it as easy as possible. I think Amazon Prime, if you have Prime, I think you have access to. I forget how all that stuff works, but
Yeah, I think if I
it'll
remember
send you
right,
right to the
yeah.
comic.
Yeah, Comixology was one through Amazon, so it's easy peasy to sign in with your Amazon there.
Right.
I was trying it out the other day, just so I can read comics while doing
Sure.
stuff. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's definitely there's that. Where can people find you out on social media, man, and keep in touch with everything too?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram more often than I am on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Uh,
I call it Triple X.
but yeah, there you go. It's getting there. My handle on both sites is C McCormack 414, and if you search my name, it should come up. Clay McCormack. It should come up pretty soon. But I most of my stuff I do on Instagram these days.
Yeah, which makes sense. Yeah, Instagram's still the business card of the industry, I think. That's my opinion on it. I was told that by a few
Yeah,
people, and they're
yeah,
like, "Yeah, just keep using that." You got the cesspool
yeah.
of Facebook, Twitter, and its whole thing, and then Instagram still is a little bit okay. But my Instagram may be a business card, but if I scroll over the reels, I see a lot of people dying on videos. So I
Yeah.
still don't know what that's about. I was like,
You
okay,
gotta click on more dog videos. Got to clean up
I
your algorithm a little bit.
the algorithms heard a lot of stuff about dogs. I don't want to. I don't want any of that.
That's
It's
true. Yeah.
it's heard a lot of shit. But Clay, thank you, man, for coming on the podcast. I'll
Yeah.
let
Thank
you
you
know
for
when
having me.
everything drops. And yeah, if you want to come back on to talk more about hot sauce juice, like just let me know. And I'll there's so much more about wrestling I want to talk about. But like I said, I don't want to take too much more of your time.
Anytime,
Like,
man. When it
oh,
the last issue should come out in what are we? April, May, June, July, August, September, like September-ish, I think.
oh shoot,
So if you
okay.
want to chat once the whole story's out, we can kind of just talk about whatever.
Yeah, I
Go
can
ahead.
be like, Clay, why did you do this? You had to kill this person. I love this person, and you killed him. Or be like, this was intense.
Hey, all those reactions is what I'm going for.
I love it, man. I love it. All right. Well, Clay, you enjoy the rest of your day, man. And again, thank you for coming
Thanks,
on,
man.
man. It's always a blast talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it. Look forward to the next time.
Sweet. Have a good one, man.
You too. Bye.